Hello, everyone. Welcome. Got a few folks join in. We'll give another minute or two and then get started. Seeing a mix in our audience, some existing iTech clients, some new faces. Welcome all. See, we got a few more joining. Give everyone one more minute, then get going. Hey, we are going to get started. Also recording the meeting, and we'll send it out to those that are here and anyone else that signed up. But welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here today, taking some time out of your Thursday morning to join us. Our topic today is AI readiness. There's been a lot of news and noise around AI. Our goal over the next 30 to 45 minutes is to bring clarity and practical knowledge to demystify this topic and help you understand how to adopt this technology into your business and help you understand how to safely and successfully adopt AI. But first, some introductions. My name is Taz. I am Chief of Staff at iTech. Do my best to keep the trains running internally, work across our marketing and IT team, as well as working very closely with Mike and Ryan on the EdTech side.
My name is Mike Renew. I am the iTech for Schools manager. I was an English and social studies teacher for about 15 years. Brian and I actually worked together for about 7 of those years at a academy in Palm Coast, Florida. And yeah, we have a strong passion for the ed tech side of schools, and that has also led us into understanding AI and a lot of those other applications better, onto the IT side, where we bring a lot of that knowledge into what we do for businesses as well.
Yeah, hi, and I'm Brian Cox. I'm an education designer, formerly 22-year plus educator, mainly like chemistry, math, those types of things. Been working with iTech now 3 years and love everything AI. So that's why we're here today.
Awesome. Well, before jumping into our theme, just a quick overview of iTech as a business for those of you that are new to us, not existing clients. iTech's a technology services business. We've been in the Orlando area for over 25 years, since 1999, serving 32 states, but primarily focused on Florida. Our mission is to help you see around the corner on all things technology. We provide services ranging from educational technology, so coaching and professional development, to proactive IT services. That's help desk support, technology support, cybersecurity, AI readiness, really all things technology in the workplace, at your school, or in your business. We deliver ed tech services as well, and that is really the focus for today. A recent offering of ours has been iTech Academy, which specializes in education and training around AI, cybersecurity, and productivity in the business. So With that, I'll jump into our agenda for today. We are going to start with a quick intro just on definitions for AI, make sure we're all speaking the same language and understanding these shared definitions, and then spend the bulk of our conversation with Brian leading a conversation around the ADAPT framework, which has been a helpful acronym for us to understand truly how to adopt and integrate AI tools into your business. So we'll go deep into each of those pillars, and then zoom out at the end and just think through, why we do this and how to successfully adopt this technology into your school and in your business. So we'll save some time at the end for Q&A, but we've also got Peter Ricks on our call who is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions along the way, please jump in, type them out. Peter will be keeping an eye on it, and we can pause along the way to get your questions answered. So with that, I will pass the mic to Brian to kick us off.
All right. Thanks, Taz. Appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody, for attending today. So before we jump into the frameworks and kind of dive into those examples, wanted to cover some basic definitions of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, what those terms are, because there's a wide spectrum, I think, in today's world where it's, the rise of the machines like Terminator, or we're using AI systems for our day-to-day processes. So the first one is artificial intelligence. And again, this is our broadest concept. So this is a field that's dedicated to creating systems or machines that can perform human tasks. Okay, so this is like reasoning and problem solving. And the goal there is to simulate or replicate human intelligence in machines. So your examples are like your self-driving car, virtual assistant, things like that. Okay. Machine learning, on the other hand, is a subset of AI. Okay, so this focuses on systems that learn from and make decisions based on large amounts of data. However, they're not programmed for every single scenario. So for example, in the chess example above for artificial intelligence, there's a lot of, if this person moves here, I can move here, but if they move here, I can move there. Change that to machine learning, where what it's doing is it's taking a large amount of data. So for example, if I gave it, a bunch of pictures of cats and I gave it a bunch of pictures of dogs, and I fed that into a machine learning system, then the next picture I show, it will be able to identify whether it's a cat or a dog. That's the idea there. So you can think of that in the frame of like spam filters in your email. So basically, it's the machine learning takes place learning what all the little markers are that identify this as spam, and that's why it'll get kicked to your spam folder. Okay, so what the machine learning is also a subset of machine learning, and think of this as your artificial neural networks. You hear that phrase a lot of neural networks, and so it's a lot of different machine learning pieces with a layer of AI all interconnected. And so what we do here is we get complex patterns and hierarchical representations directly from large amounts of unstructured data. And so what it can do is it can it can be more accurate and handle more complex patterns. So you can imagine like with facial and speech recognition, where that would be of use there. So just to cover some basic terms out of the gate for you guys so we can proceed. Okay, so, all right. So what's our challenge? Okay. So if AI is the new layer of productivity and creativity, are you an organization that is capable of early adoption, thoughtful customization, and being able to govern that responsibly in order to capture the most value? So that's our real challenge and our real focus today, and we're going to try to work through that. Okay, so now why does this matter? Okay, listen, we're in a transformational time, everybody. AI, machine learning, it's changing the way you operate in your day. You can have Alexa reading the news and giving you updates on the weather report in the morning, to hop into your self-driving car that can take you to work. And then when you come home at night, you'll have all kinds of personalization via your Amazon choices or Netflix or your Spotify choices, all with these different layers of AI encompassing your day-to-day life. A little statistic is 55% of all companies and organizations a year ago had some type of AI tool integrated into their business or organization. Now that number within less than 12 months is over 75%. So we have to ask ourselves, are you ready for AI in that or in your organization? And if so, what will it do for you? So we introduced ADAPT. Okay, so this acronym allows you to identify these areas of strength and weaknesses. So in order to incorporate AI into your organization. So we look at alignment first. Okay, so that's your goals, making sure you have clear targeted goals for, is this something that AI can do to help us in our processes? And obviously the next piece of that would be your data quality, the next pillar there being like high quality, accessible data is imperative in order for these systems to work. Because if you don't have good data, that can be a problem. Next, we'll talk about agility. So this is the ability to be able to kind of grow with the times, because we know that AI is such a proliferating market. There's hundreds of thousands of AI tools that are available worldwide. And that landscape is constantly changing. I mean, just if you even follow the news within the last 3 to 6 months, you know, it seems like it's changing almost every minute, it seems like. The next pillar we'll talk about is process readiness. And this is a really important key feature here, because we're going to look at how your processes are going, and will AI be able to be integrated in a way that impacts your organization, your business, your school, let's say, in a way that's beneficial for everyone. And then lastly, we need to cover the trust pillar. That is the overarching umbrella, I believe, that all these others would have to fall under, which is your ethical guidelines, and making sure that we're building safe and secure and also transparent systems for your organization. All right, so first off, let's talk about alignment. We want to solve a defined, measurable challenge, and we need to be very, very clear, because otherwise you aren't solving the problem. You might be actually creating more. So if you think of these abstract types of things that you want to do, I want AI to do something. It needs to be a targeted, specific, clarified goal. So we need to ask ourselves, like, so what problem are we trying to solve? And then how does solving that improve any of the outcomes? And then how are we going to measure success? So what is our success metric, and how are we going to measure that? And then at the end, we need to know, like, is AI the right tool for this? It may or may not be. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a couple of scenarios for everyone in attendance. So we had some education folks in the room. We also have some business folks in the room. So we wanted to kind of find a way to give you like workable examples as we go through this. So when we look at alignment, and you look at both of these statements, AI as an educator, I want AI for student success. And in the business area, AI to increase sales. Well, what does that mean? That's not a good metric. So if you change that to, I want to use predictive analytics to identify at-risk students 2 weeks earlier, that's a very specific target. On the business side, if it's, I want to use AI to predict product demands and reduce out of stock incidents by 20% within 6 months, that's extremely focused. So we know that we need to have targeted, clear, and measurable goals. And that's a big takeaway there for alignment. All right, data quality. This is perhaps the most time consuming, and it in fact is, and probably the most challenging, because here we have to have trustworthy, reasonable data, because if you have bad data, you're going to have bad results. If you have biased data, you're eliminating a group potentially, and that you're seeking to reach out to. So we need to ask again, like, do we trust our data sources, and where are we getting those from? Okay. Is it consistent and complete and even current? Sometimes old data can be bad data, but sometimes old data can be very helpful for what you're trying to achieve. And then again, like, how are we accessing that data? Where is that being housed? And obviously, again, number one is security of that data. You can imagine in an education setting, student data has to be very, very high quality and very, very secure. Okay. All right, so going back to our scenarios. So now we're looking at, we have defined an alignment goal that's very targeted and specific. So now we lean into, now the district is going to clean up its inconsistent grading and attendance data so predictions aren't skewed, meaning that now they can if people can take a look at that data and say like, oh, well, this, for example, if a student is absent on PSAT testing, well, maybe they're a 12th grader and they don't need to be there for that PSAT testing. Is that going to count? Is that good data or bad data when you're counting attendance for your original targeted goal? all right? In the business world again. So the retailer in this case is unifying its product and sales data in multiple locations, which is allowing them to have some type of standardization, which is going to increase their accuracy, right? So we know that AI and machine learning can handle tons of data, but you need to have a strategic approach. So it's all about like developing a comprehensive strategies for data management, how the collection process, and then labeling that from the start. And that'll get you out of the gate really well from a data standpoint. Okay, agility, our pillar 3. In today's ever-changing world, how are you going to handle the rapid escalation in AI? I mean, remember, this is something that's only been around for less than 5 years. I mean, you can make an argument even 3 years in the forefront of our society and the daily news feed that we're getting. So we need to be able to see, like, within your organization, how quickly can your team respond to those changes? If you're in the education realm, there's a real shiny AI tool, seems like every other week that comes out and it hits some form of some particular target, but then it goes by the wayside because something better maybe comes along or that phases out and it doesn't do the intended job. Then we need to say, like, are we empowering our employees to experiment? How are we getting them to understand the power of AI or that tool that we're trying to use and being able to experiment and learn from it and grow within that realm? And also leadership is very important here because if leadership is in the forefront blowing the sails of this AI adaptability, then they're allowing for learning and flexibility and growing within the organization, always keeping the target forward is the big aim here. And then obviously, again, like, do we have some structures built in for this type of adaptation? So when new things do happen, are we able to pivot within our organization? So seeing this in action from an education standpoint is really about like professional development. Like, is there specified training where where teachers are learning about an AI or AI tool that is allowing them to adjust their lesson pacing, that also can build with more training to allow the teachers and staff, leadership, even parents and students to be able to learn with the AI and experiment, but given some real strict guidelines, right? So that training is super important. And I feel like the same thing is in the business scenario, right? If we have teams that in your workplace that have ongoing AI training and they're using this to make quick data informed decisions, but they're getting trained on what they're looking for, it's going to be that much more productive. Plus, it allows you that when the new thing happens, you're in a position to be able to change rapidly. Okay, so when we think about this too, this brings up the question, in order to be AI ready, how do you consistently and thoughtfully stay up to the current pace of change? And part of that is being process ready. Okay. So what we know here is like AI loves information. I shouldn't say loves, right? That's kind of weird. Like AI loves that. Probably should say it thrives, it enjoys, I guess. I know that's an emotion too, but it really does well with large amounts of data. I gotta like not personalize my AI, right? But it loves to do that stuff, right? It thrives on repetitive tasks. So you think about automation as really a no-brainer. You want to make things more streamlined and simple, but you got to ask yourself or think about, like, in order to make your processes, to make sure your processes are ready, what manual steps do I need to do before I begin this automation process? For example, at iTech, we have a help desk. And so an alignment was we want to streamline that process. So in the data collection piece and in this process readiness, the team was looking at, like, okay, where are these tickets being generated? How long is the response time? Where are our redundancies and bottlenecks? Where is the slowdown happening in order for us to streamline that process? And we're doing all of that before we even consider an AI system. So again, in that process readiness, are your workflows documented, current? Like, what does that look like, okay, in your organization? And then think about, like, what can you manually do to make it work better, okay, before you introduce an AI system, because maybe it won't do what you want, what the intention was. Okay, so seeing this in action, okay, so again, we have this before they're launching these predictive alerts, okay, going back to that the 2-week time on those at-risk students, the counselor teams, they decrease that referral time instead of it taking 7 days down to 2 days. So instead of submitting basically a ticket or hey, I want to go see my counselor and it taking a week, they shored that time down to 2 days. So you can see even just a manual process streamlined. Okay. Now you would be able to be in a position where you can introduce an AI system to actually generate those targeted conferences and things like that. In the business scenario, you can see the retailer mapped that supply chain. So they went through and found these little bottlenecks and little slowdown areas. And so what that did is that simplified that process before the AI automation. Okay, lastly, our pillar 5, okay, on ethics. Okay, real quick, I want to back up for a second on this last thing on process readiness. I think the big question or the big takeaway for me is that before I think about getting this shiny tool, right, that's going to be out there, there's, like I said, thousands of them. What can I do right now to ensure that that AI tool will function the way it's intended? And I think that's a really big, important question or key takeaway to take away from that step. Okay, now going to pillar 5 on your ethical and trust framework, the T part of our ADAPT acronym. So here, I think we want to take a human-centered approach. Okay, so meaning like if I'm an outsider, consumer, a customer, a parent, you know, how is this going to affect me? If I'm in the business world, like how does this fit in my customer journey? Okay, so from you know, like getting something on, let's say looking at Amazon, all those little steps to finally get to the checkout, but then what's going to make that repeatable? Okay, so all those different steps that are there along the way. So if I'm using an AI system, how can I assure that those results are fair and unbiased? Because we know if it is unbiased, then you're not being fair to other groups. You're marginalizing maybe a set group of people. And again, that goes back to having really, really good data. Okay, that'll help eliminate that. So when you go through this process, I think if we have a human-centered approach all the way throughout, when we get to this point, we can say like, okay, who is overseeing our AI risk and compliance? Like, what does that look like? What is our, you know, what do we hang our hat on? Are these outcomes explainable and understandable for our clients? Okay. And then how do we communicate that within our organization, even up the chain or even down the chain, depending on where it fits? And then again, how are we making sure we're eliminating bias? Because that can negatively impact your organization. So I think when we look at scenarios, okay, and schools are doing this that we've worked with, and even some businesses that we were working with, is that we have an AI ethics charter or, you know, like a policy in place that outlines privacy and policies that are there. And then we distribute that to the parents. Okay, then that way they know that something's being done or there's an address to this new technology that's being in our day-to-day lives. In the business scenario, same thing, right? We're getting leadership to form teams that they're going to monitor this performance. They're going to make sure that we're auditing and looking for bias so that we can keep things transparent for our employees and the partners and eventually our consumer. Oops. So I think the best thing is about acceptable use policies and those types of things that will ensure transparency in the organization, which goes a long way. Finally, to wrap this up, these 5 pillars, so adapt or alignment, data, agility, process, and trust. Knowing that these outcomes are what the intended purpose of this is, right? So if I have alignment, then I'm going to have a measurable impact. It's going to be data driven. It's going to be results driven. And I have to make sure that my data is reliable, that it's eliminating bias, that we're getting high quality data and large amounts of data so that the AI system that I'm using or tool can perform the way we intend it to. Agility, I think, is extremely important because we have to be able to pivot in this landscape. And the more agile you are, the more confidence that your people in your organization have. And training is a big, big piece of that. The process pillar we just talked about, this is allowing everything to be sustainable, because if you've developed and you've gone through these processes along the way, then when the next AI tool or the next problem you're trying to solve, you have a structure in place to allow you to be successful. All right. And then finally, your trust. Okay. Again, this is our ethical guideline. This is where the umbrella of everything goes underneath. This allows you to have sustainability. You have trust with your employees, trust with your clients, trust with your parents in the education setting, which is extremely important. Okay, lastly, how do we wrap this up? Okay, if you looked at each of those pillars, we know that each one is very, very targeted and specific. Okay, and they all require time and expertise to have proper implementation. But we really think that that framework, if you look at it and break it down by each different component, and you will set yourself up for success in what you do. Okay, so thank you for that, and I'm going to pass this back over to Taz and keep us going.
Wonderful. I'll take us home here and just give a quick overview of iTech Academy and how that relates to the AI readiness that Brian just walked through. Thank you, Brian. If you took nothing else away from this conversation, it's that adopting AI is a lot more than just bringing on a tool, and it's a major undertaking. It can feel overwhelming. You have to start with people and data and process and trust, and it can take months, and you may find resistance in your business. And this may be as much of a people management and change management challenge than it is a data and technology challenge. And that is what we found. iTech as a business went through this transformation a few years ago, ran into the same issue that I imagine many of you have run into, of bringing tools into the business, not having a cohesive strategy on who is using what and what is a safe and acceptable use, and what is our broader strategy as an organization with this powerful tool and technology. We had also been hearing this from our clients, and this is kind of the origin story of iTech Academy. We saw a lot of our IT and schools adopting technology and not getting the results that they wanted. We saw organizations investing heavily in these tools, but finding they had low usage, they were poorly configured, and they missed their outcomes. So as an IT services firm, as an education technology firm, we have long been at the intersection of people and technology and felt like we had a job to do to help our clients with this emerging technology. So iTech Academy was born out of that idea, realizing that the missing piece in all of this was not what tool do I buy for my business. It's how do I set up my organization and configure my culture to adopt this technology and this tool. So that is the origin of iTech Academy. And to kind of put that in a more concrete view, what does an engagement actually look like? We take the assess, design, deploy approach, as you see on this slide. And this is what we've done for clients in the past across AI, cybersecurity, and other tools. But in a nutshell, we start with an assessment, right? We work with you side by side in understanding the current state of your organization. Are you far along the curve? Do you have, an AI committee already? You know the tools that you want, and you just need some help on acceptable use policies and configuring your organization for adoption? Or do you not know where to start, and you want a better understanding of where am I on the AI readiness spectrum, and am I ready to bring on a tool in the business? So that assessment phase is critical, and that's where we start. We go deep in your business. We understand the ins and outs. We interview your people, and we try and get a deep understanding of where you are today. From there, that helps us design what the engagements look like, typically through the form of workshops. So these are hands-on sessions with your team, helping them understand where we're going. Right back to that people conversation. It's about messaging. It's about setting the right tone and building the right culture that can ingest these new tools and this new technology. So that second phase is focused on workshops. And then finally, we work with you side by side on deployment and training. So if you flip to the next slide, Brian, just to give you an overview of the different offerings, it's not just AI readiness. It's also cybersecurity. The slide before, Brian, just to give an overview of the different pieces. So it's our Google Suite or Microsoft. If you're a Teams user, we help with adoption and training there. Cybersecurity awareness, that's probably our second most popular engagement behind AI today. Just understanding where you are in terms of cyber readiness, preparing your team for phishing and spam and ransomware protection. So this is a view of kind of the four main service offerings of iTech Academy beyond just AI. And that next slide, Brian, just gives you a deeper understanding of actually what an engagement looks like. So we're here to help. We want to bring you clarity. We want to bring you purpose, and that's through that assessment, workshop, and coaching phase. So with that, we'll pause. And here you can see our contact information. You can scan that QR code if you want to book some extra time with us. But any questions from the group?
Taz, I was going to say if I could just expand on that real quick too. Just
please.
When Taz is talking about the, like especially like cybersecurity and AI, and the workshops that we do, there's definitely a low level version of that, of just kind of making sure everybody understands the basics of cybersecurity, the basics of AI leveraging and utilization. But then part of those workshops and from that assessment piece and getting to understand your particular school or your particular company and what you guys do, that's when kind of the higher touch tailoring comes in, and looking at how does AI impact your sales team? How does cybersecurity impact people who work from home versus people who work in an office, and what does that look like? And then how can we leverage tools differently for different types of business, different production levels, all that kind of stuff. So that's something that we really enjoy doing, is getting into kind of that deeper side of it, and making it so somebody's not sitting through a workshop that's designed so high level that it ends up feeling like it doesn't apply to them.
Well said.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions about any of those offerings, any of those services, anything that Brian went over, that was a great high level kind of look at just how we think about AI, because a lot of it is definitely, I don't know how else to say it, but like philosophical, I guess. So is kind of the first level of really understanding AI, is how we think about its leveraging and its use on like a philosophical level, and that's kind of where Brian was at. So it's definitely a lot to take in. So if anybody has any questions, or even just kind of like poking around the edges of what we think about different things, we would love to take those questions. Let's see. So we had a question from Ashley. Do we offer something like this for Copilot? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot with all of the kind of major AI systems, whether it's GPT, Copilot, Claude, Gronk, whatever. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And actually, that can range from kind of depending on where your team is, pretty advanced training on like, hey, we already understand the basic uses of Copilot. We want to go deeper on what are kind of the edge case uses for that tool, all the way from we just signed on for Copilot and we kind of need an orientation training for the team. So that is part of one of our domains. A good question.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, if there's no other questions, we will wrap a few minutes early. We have not forgotten about the giveaway for a free engagement. So we will be reaching out to the lucky winner after this meeting. But thank you all for joining, taking time out of your day. You know where to reach us, and appreciate you all joining us today. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Right,
Have a good
Thank
day.
you guys.
Yep.
Have a great day.